The air hung heavy and still, thick with the scent of damp earth and decaying leaves. I was 26 when I bought the house, 2 hours from my old life, deep in a rural expanse where the nearest neighbor was a distant silhouette through a screen of pines. This was just isolated. It felt forgotten. A perpetual twilight seemed to cling to the property, even at midday, the colossal trees swallowing the sun, casting the small, weather-beaten house in a perpetual gloom. It was more unsettling than it'd admit, a constant whisper of being utterly alone. My rented truck groaned under the weight of a life condensed into boxes. I'd spent hours, under a sky bleeding from gold to bruised purple, wrestling furniture and crates into the living room, a chaotic monument to my new beginning. As dusk deepened, painting the dense woods in shades of inky black, I moved to retrieve the last few items from the truck. But as I turned, a shadow peeled itself from the encroaching darkness, solidifying into a figure on my porch. He stood directly before the front door, a man in his 50s blocking my only way in. A jolt, a primal fear, shot through me before embarrassment quickly followed. "Can I help you?" I asked, trying to sound casual, despite the frantic thump of my heart against my ribs. He offered a wide, unsettling smile, his eyes strangely vacant yet intensely fixed on me. "Just your new neighbor," he rasped, his voice a dry rustle. "Glad to see someone finally moved in." The smile remained, unwavering, as an unasked question clawed at my mind. How did he get there? There was no car, no discernible path through the thick undergrowth, just the endless, silent woods. He just stood there, watching me, his presence an oppressive weight. I felt my skin prickle, an icy dread creeping up my spine. He seemed to drink me in, his gaze lingering before he abruptly turned and descended the porch steps, melting back into the deepening shadows without a sound. I stood frozen, grappling with the sheer oddity of the encounter. The air tasted metallic, and my breath hitched. A moment later, I forced myself to move, to finish hauling the last boxes, my eyes darting nervously into the black expanse where he'd vanished. I checked every window, every lock, but he was gone. No car, no sign of movement down the long, winding dirt track that was my driveway. The unsettling truth sank in. He hadn't used the road. He'd come from the woods and gone back into them. Returning the truck felt like an escape, albeit temporary. The taxi ride back to the suffocating silence of my new home was a blur of unease. Exhaustion gnawed at me, but I needed to assemble my bed. Anything to feel a semblance of normalcy. I dragged the flat-pack pieces into the bedroom, the rustling of cardboard echoing unnaturally in the cavernous space. My hands trembled as I fumbled with the instructions. Then, a sudden, sharp rap shattered the silence. My entire body seized. The sound seemed to emanate from the very heart of the house, reverberating through the floorboards. I froze, listening, a cold sweat breaking out. Another knock. Louder this time. It was the front door. My heart hammered, a frantic drumbeat in the stillness. I crept towards the living room, towards the entrance, each step agonizingly slow. I kept the door locked, the deadbolt a cold comfort against my palm. Through the peephole, I saw him, the neighbor, but he was different, worse. His entire frame shook, a disturbing tremor that ran through him. His head lolled on his neck at an unnatural angle, but his eyes, disturbingly wide and fixed, were glued to the doorknob. He stared at it with an unnerving intensity, as if willing it to turn, pressing himself against the wood, almost vibrating with anticipation. "Hey, neighbor, you there? Can you open up?" he bellowed, his voice distorted, then hammered again, a desperate, frantic rhythm against the wood. I pressed my eye closer to the peephole, a sliver of irrational hope fighting the rising tide of pure terror. His face, stretched taut, contorted with a sickening blend of frustration and simmering rage. He slammed his fist against the door one last time, a sickening thud that vibrated through the frame. Then he spun around, his back to me, facing the absolute blackness of the forest. He raised a hand, a slow, deliberate wave into the abyss, a gesture of beckoning, of acknowledgement. And then, without another sound, he bolted into the trees, disappearing into the impenetrable dark exactly where he'd waved. Panic seized me, a cold, suffocating grip. My mind raced, the earlier strangeness now a horrifying premonition. Who was he waving to? How many were out there waiting for him to convince me, to lure me into opening that door? The thought sent a violent shiver through me. My hands shook so violently I could barely dial 911. The police arrived, their sirens a welcome, though distant sound against the overwhelming silence of the woods. They searched, their flashlights cutting through the darkness like futile attempts to banish a nightmare, but found nothing. No trace of the man. To this day, I've never seen him again. I've met all my actual neighbors. None of them fit his description. No one in town recognizes him. The unanswered questions gnaw at me, a festering wound in my psyche. What lurked in those woods? What would have happened if he'd opened the door? The darkness he vanished into, the terrifying wave, it still haunts my waking thoughts and invades my dreams. Am convinced some things are best left unthought. If you found yourself in Ethan's shoes, isolated and facing such an unnerving encounter, would you have trusted your instincts and kept the door locked, or would the fear of appearing rude have compelled you to open it? Share your thoughts and how you would have handled this chilling situation in the comments below. And if this story sent a shiver down your spine, don't forget to like this video, share it with a friend, and subscribe to the channel for more spine-tingling, true horror tales.